So my name is Emily Eston. I'm on the land of the Lenape hooking, which is in current day Philadelphia, PA. I use she and her pronouns. I'm also a curator at the University of Pennsylvania and the director of communications for National EMP Network, which is what brings us here today.
Perfect. And the woman who's been talking a lot since you've gotten here is Sierra Van Richtergroot. That is me. I am one half of the Sierra's co-presidential leadership team for National Emerging Museum Professionals Network, also known as National EMP Network, also known as NEMPN. I currently reside in the state of New Jersey, which is also in Lenape-Hooking. It's a very big space, basically in the lands of the Munsee Lenape people. And I use she, her pronouns. I am a medium-toned, brown-skinned woman with shoulder-length hair, and I'm wearing a white, warm, fuzzy sweater. My background is Black with various photos and documents hanging on the wall behind me. We are very excited to get to know all of you in the chat. And so feel free throughout this session to put in where you are calling in from in the chat, because we'd love to know. And there will be an opportunity for us to all introduce ourselves in a more formal way in a second. So let's get started. So let's talk about making that network work for EMPs. This is presented by NEMPN, National Emerging Museum Professionals Network, but specifically by Emily Eston, who is our Director of Communications, and myself, Sierra Van Richtergroot, who I said again is one half of the Sierra's co-presidential leadership team. You want to take this, Emily?
Yeah, so we are going to talk about some different platforms that you can use for networking. We're also going to talk about conferences, various communication spaces. So we're going to talk about working on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and everyone's favorite TikTok, as well as email, and just how to get in touch and contact with different people.
We're very excited because you can find us in almost all of these places except TikTok. We do not have a TikTok presence as an organization, but who knows, that could change. So starting off with email listservs, we like to say that, like, in order to start your networking, you do not always have to be on a social media platform. You can start with just a listserv. So MCN actually has a great listserv that you should join. Also, there's talk@museumed.org, the AAM forum, which is typically emailed as a listserv. If you are in New York City, the New York City Museum Educators Roundtable peer groups are also run through a listserv system. And then, of course, for me and for folks who think a little internationally, Museum Detox, which is a really great group based in the UK, is another great listserv to just be a part of. And these are great places to just kind of start dipping your toe into the networking world. If you're like not super familiar with how to start, this is a good first step, and it comes right into your inbox. I will say that one piece of advice that has been floating around the NEMPN world is creating a separate email for your professional things. That way you don't get inundated in emails with all of these things that could come in with listservs. I don't know about you, Emily, but my listservs, they get a little wild. And I have like 100 unread listserv messages, but it's fine. You can engage as you like as you come on in.
Yeah, building up on what Sierra says, it's very low stakes. You can participate as much or as little as you want, and you get to get a good sense of like what conversations people are interested or want to be having.
Exactly.
Yeah, so next we're talking about Twitter, and museum Twitter is one of my favorite places. It's one of the ways I was really interested and involved and introduced to the museum space. There are lots of great museum professionals, from EMPs to really established people who are engaging on Twitter, sharing work about their institutions, about discourse in the field. And there are trips to museums, things that are coming up all the time. One of the things I really appreciate about Twitter is that it's really easy to reach a wider network. So you can ask a question about resources if you use a hashtag or you're pointed at the right person, and you can get a lot of attention and eyes and get the resources that you want. And people are fairly approachable, right? If you tag them and you're nice and kind about it, they'll often want to respond or engage with you. And then you can find different connections to other people as well. And so it's like a trail from one person to a greater community.
I agree. And we put some hashtags that we are following on here. This is not a comprehensive list. There's only a few of the great hashtags you can follow. Hashtag Museum Ed, hashtag Muse Tech, which also you will find many folks who are attending MCN there. Muse Social, which is great for folks like Emily. And of course, you'll see other conference people who work in social media also popping up there. HATM, which is Historians at the Movies, is actually a really great thread to follow that watch movies and do a live tweet chat of those movies together. It's very fun. Museum Ed Chat typically happens on Thursdays. It's a great way to kind of do a live tweet chat with other museum educators. Museums are not neutral is a general hashtag that we kind of mark important things under. And then Drinking About Museums, which is also another kind of like informal group that you can follow along with, and that could lead to some in-person meetups. So again, not a comprehensive list, but a great place to kind of start if you're just dipping your toes in. And I know that Twitter is kind of intimidating because we've talked a lot about Twitter in the news recently, in terms of like politics, in terms of like all kinds of chaos that's happened, but Twitter can be a really valuable networking tool. So if you are thinking about starting a Twitter or you have one and you're not really super active on it, don't be afraid. It's a great place to start. Moving right into that is Facebook. So we all know Facebook has a lot going on. We get it. It's not as popular as it used to be. It's also a little spicy. However, there are still many great museum places that are museum groups that are hosted on Facebook. National EMP Network has the Emerging Museum Professionals group, which has almost 15,000 other museum professionals located in that group that are at your disposal to talk to. There's also Museum Social Media Managers, which is also a pretty great group to join if that's something you're working on. Museum Hue, which is a great group for BIPOC individuals who are looking to kind of connect. There's also a community page for folks who are allies of those individuals. Museum Mingle, which is another informal group to meet on. I know that Museum Mingle also has some offshoots that are around specific concentrations or areas of interest in the museum field. Like I know there's a Museum Mingle like education and interpretation group. Nonprofit Happy Hour, which is a massive group that is dedicated to talking about nonprofits as like a whole. And then there's Nonprofit Happy Hour Affiliated Accessibility Group, which is another great group to kind of connect with if you are thinking about accessibility either on a personal level or in a organizational level as well. I will say that a lot of groups are trying to leave Facebook because of all of the various reasons to leave Facebook. So you might find that a group is not super active on Facebook. You also might find a group is like thriving on Facebook. So feel free to check in on like when the last time people posted in that group was, what does it look like for new members, keeping track of like all that stuff. And I will say that if you are someone who has two separate Facebook identities, so you have a professional and a personal Facebook, these are great for your professional Facebook. I know quite a few people who only have one Facebook who use their personal Facebook on there. Just be aware of tightening up your settings if you're concerned about people kind of like looking deeper into you from there. It's just a thought.
The other thing I'll add about Facebook is that these groups, each one has their own individual rules about what you can post, what kind of things you can share, whether or not you can be anonymous in a group. So that's another thing to check as you're joining a particular group. There might be, I know for the Emerging Museum Professionals group, we have a list of questions that we ask you to answer. Part of that is for demographics, so we get a sense of why are you interested in this group, but it's also to make sure that you respond to a code of conduct. So to keep that in mind, whereas on Twitter, you can choose to be private or you can choose to interact with the entire world. Facebook, you're choosing to be a part of a group, and so you have to respect that group's guidelines.
That is a great point, Emily. I feel like we get a lot of people who come in like guns blazing into the Emerging Museum Professionals group, and we're like, pump brakes. We have a code of conduct here. Speaking of a code of conduct, let's talk about LinkedIn, Emily.
So especially for people who are still in school or people who are coming from other fields, LinkedIn is starting to be a much more popular space to be sharing professional work, to be talking about discourse in the field generally, and to just be sharing the kinds of projects that people are working on. The thing about LinkedIn as well is that you can join as an individual, or you'll have companies or organizations joining and sharing their own things. So we follow a bunch of different groups on LinkedIn. And Sarah, do you want to take it from here?
Oh yeah, so this is like a mix of like personal following and so forth. There is a national EMP group on LinkedIn. I will be fully transparent. We do not use it.
It
But
is something we're looking to support. Yeah.
Yes. If you haven't noticed, NEMPN has been going through a couple of changes over the last 2 years where we have completely revamped our offerings and how we approach our work. And it's taking a slow but sure path to get us back to the full stretch of what we can do. So LinkedIn is something we're looking to kind of get more into in 2022. But who we are personally following on LinkedIn is, again, the New York City Museum Educators Roundtable, the National Art Educators Association, that's NAEA, folks we've met on social media. So like, I can't tell you how many people I've met on museum Twitter or Instagram that then come find me on LinkedIn and add me, or I see them pop up on LinkedIn and I'm like, oh, definitely got to connect with this person. People we have met IRL at conferences, workshops, convenings. There's nothing better than going to a conference. You sit next to someone, you're talking to them, you're like, oh my gosh, this person's amazing. I want to talk to them more. Just slide them a little LinkedIn ad, and you guys can continue your conversation after that session or after a conference as a whole. Amazing. And then also reaching out to professionals we admire. So one thing I will say is, and Emily said this before, it's really wonderful when you can just reach out to someone and say, hey, I really admire the work that you do and I'd love to chat with you more about it. Or I just want to follow you because I think you're doing great work. Is that okay? Just reaching out, shoot your shot, see if they like it. I will say the museum field, I would say the GLAM field in general, that's galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. People are generally super willing to connect with you on social media. I mean, that's the whole purpose of it, right? And so if you reach out to someone you admire, even someone that you think, whoa, this person is like a big name, do they even know who I am, whatever. Most people are generally willing to just connect. And if you want to talk to them, they're very willing to connect with you to talk. So it's totally cool. Just shoot your shot, send them a message. And as LinkedIn says, when you reach out to someone that they don't know if you know, add a little note, just say like, hey, you know, I follow you on Twitter, I follow you here, I saw you at this conference, blah, blah, blah. I just wanted to connect. That way people can place a face to a name or at least know where you're coming from, that you're not just someone coming to lurk on their page. What about IG?
Yeah, so Instagram, another amazing place, particularly because it's so visually focused. So it's a great place to express yourself, as well as participate in discussions and connections, and even more so probably in the past year, it's become a really great place for organizations to pop up and sort of grassroots campaigns to begin. So one of the things, we follow a lot of accounts. You can follow lots of organizations, other museums. You can follow lots of professional organizations as well. And then just seeing people that you admire or inspired by. There are hashtags that you can follow on Instagram. It's a little bit different than it is on Twitter, although I will say that Museum 30 is coming up for November. And that's always really a fun, people are posting pictures about their experiences in museums, some of their favorite places, some things that they do, whether they work in them or have been to them. And so those kinds of campaigns are always really exciting.
I agree. I always look forward to Museum 30, which is actually just like an independently run campaign by a museum professional, also known under the name of Magnifying Zoology. And it's just like, I was always impressed every year that this comes out, and it's just so well done. And I will give huge props to Gracie for also making sure that's translated into a lot of languages, so it really goes internationally. And I will drop Museum 30 in the chat. That's actually how I kind of like broke into my professional Instagram, was doing Museum 30. So this is like a great way for you to kind of think about it if you're a little bit more visually inclined. And the accounts that we're following, again, New York City Museum Educators Roundtable, National Emerging Museum Professionals Network, highly recommend you follow us. We're very fun on there. Museum Workers Speak. We are also following all of the hot museum Instagram. So like Change the Museum, We also follow Museum Shit. We follow Museum Shift. We follow International Map Makers Forum. We follow like all kinds of people. So really follow museum professional Instagrams that you care about and that you're passionate about. So we also follow professional orgs that we care about. So our group is national/international. So we follow the Canadian Museum Association, but we also follow like SEMC, Southeast. What does SEMC stand for again? Southeast Museum Conference? I always forget what the C is. Also, great tip, if you're ever trying to remember all of the acronyms in the museum field, you don't have to, there's too many. Don't ever feel pressure to do that. And then we also like to follow museums and cultural orgs that we love and are inspired by. As a professional, as an individual professional, if there's a particular museum that's like your dream museum to work at, I highly recommend following them on Instagram. That's only going to build your knowledge of that institution until a position that works for you comes out. Also, it's a great way for you to know when something is open. A lot of places will post on Instagram, like when a position is open, or post on Twitter, etc. That's a great time for you to go and swoop in and be like, well, I've been following this Instagram for 6 months now. I already know that they've been doing all this cool stuff. I can just like swoop in there. I'm applying for that coordinator of social media position and I'm ready to go. So highly recommend. Ooh, just flying right through there. Sorry, folks.
I think the other thing you'll add while you're switching through slides, so we talk about professional posting from some of these orgs, but sometimes people are sharing memes on Instagram, which is always really fun. Some of my favorite examples. And job postings are surprisingly very popular. And so you'll always see someone say, like, here's the description, and then here's the link in the bio, and you can go straight to their account and go see the information that they're sharing.
It's amazing. So let's talk about TikTok. Okay, so for all of my older folks here, RIP Vine, we miss her. Love her. But let's talk about how TikTok can be also a place for networking. So there are a lot of TikTok has kind of evolved. So right, it's not just dances, it's not just recipes, it's not just hot takes. It's sometimes just hot takes, but it's a really great place for you to meet other museum professionals. So we also follow professional orgs on TikTok. That's actually typically how we're able to connect with either hiring managers or folks who are looking for like a more tech savvy crew. Also typically a younger demographic as well is found on TikTok. So it's also a great place to be in general. Museums and cultural orgs that we love and are inspired by, also following them on TikTok if they have one. It's also just fun to see like video ways of people engaging with the content and different trends. Sometimes they're ridiculous, sometimes they're really fun. We also are following Museum TikTok, very similar to Instagram. You can follow hashtags on there. Museum TikTok is one, Museum Talk, just museums in general. There are also museum professionals that you will find in your travels on social media who are also on there. Just add them on TikTok, watch their content. They may be trying to rise as a TikTok star. We just want to make sure everyone gets their coin if they're looking for it. Any thoughts on TikTok, Emily?
I think you captured a lot of what I was saying. I think the other thing is that it's really experimental. Like people are trying out new things in the same way that I guess a decade or two ago, people were trying out things on YouTube. So different models of kind of things, what sort of things people would want to be displaying, what kind of things you can go behind the scenes in a museum or behind the scenes in your experiences. So yeah, I think of the other places that we've talked about, TikTok is probably the one if you wanted to try something new or you try to try something exciting or, a little different in terms of how you display yourself professionally.
Yeah. So we're going to pause here for a second because we want to do our first round of networking with all of you in this session. So I'm going to share, hold on. I am going to share the link to a Google Sheet for folks to fill out information about themselves, and you can fill out as much or as little information as you like. But here you go. this Google Sheet that I just shared in there is a great way for you to just like get people's information from this session. So all of the conference presenters, even our friend Heidi, who was not able to be here, have submitted their information. You are more than welcome to submit your own as well, to just connect with folks who are currently in this session. And if you speed through that, because I imagine that you will, we are also going to do a quick Mentimeter to see how active you all are in the conference field. So I'm going to change my screen. Oh, it looks like you need access. That does explain a lot. Thank you, Andrea.
I got it. Hold on. There you go.
Thank you. Let's be real for a second. Technology is hard out here. Okay.
It's like the first rule in any of my workshops is that computers are very dumb and computers are very careful.
That's true. So as you all kind of fill out that spreadsheet, once you finish, I'm also just going to put up a full screen Mentimeter, which if you've ever done any conference session with me before, I love to use a little Mentimeter, little live action. Let me just share that. So you can do this on your phone or on your computer. It will give you, it's at the very top, it says go to www.menti.com. I'll also put that in the chat. And you can use the code to share your conference attendance. So what conferences have you been to in this field? So it doesn't just have to be a museum conference, it could be museum adjacent. We're just really curious to hear, like, where have you been? Where have people been in this session? Ooh, so we got two already. We got MCN, obviously. So good to see MCN in the house. We see NCPH. I'm so excited for NCPH this year. And by this year, I mean 2022, because I'm done with 2021. NCPH is going to be so good this year. I'm so excited. It's going to be in Montreal. So excited for Montreal. So it's
and for context, NCPH is the National Council for Public History.
Yes. Museums on the web. I want to go to that conference. I don't know why I haven't been there yet. And Axial. Oh my gosh, yes, I always forget about their conference. Feel free to share any conferences that you've attended before in the field. We would love to know where you're from. And then also the spreadsheet is available to you all for the rest of the session. So you can start now, come back to it, you can add to it, feel free. But we are just looking to know, what have you all been up to? Where have you been? Ooh, we got Alberta Museum Association. Love that. We got AAM. Okay. NICMER, sure. VEX, great. Our friends at the VEX conference did an amazing job this year being virtual. I think every conference that's gone virtually has done a pretty good job. But VEX this year really blew me out of the water with how well they kind of put that together. And they're going to be in Cleveland next year. And they've already booked an EMP house from us, Emily, which I'm so excited about. And we're going to talk more about EMP house later in this session. So don't worry that I'm like dropping some hot tip that you don't know about yet. Museums of the web got big, which means that a lot of people are going to that. So that's great. That's actually really good to know. We're gonna leave a couple extra minutes for folks to add any additional conferences that you attended. We have ARCS conference. Oh yeah, ARCS is happening right now? Next time? No, next time? I wanna say it's like right now. So cool. Interpretation Canada, awesome. Alberta Museums Association, great. This is awesome. This is a really good set of conferences, folks. Let's see what's Black portraitures. Oh yeah, forgot about that. These are good. This is reminding me of all the great conferences that are out there. NEMA, that's right, the New England Museum Association. It's because the Northeast is heavily repping at this event. So I'm going to stop this share for a quick second so that we can kind of regroup as a team together. But thank you all for sharing where you've been and where you've been going. This is exciting. Let's take a look at let's take a look back at our presentation to talk about networking IRL. So I'm going to pop this back up. And thank you all for letting me talk through this process with you. So let's talk networking IRL. So COVID is still happening. We're still in a panorama. Like, I get that, but we are starting to notice that conferences are coming back in person, and it's good for us to be ready to go when those are back. Emily, do you want to take this?
Yeah, so we talked about social media networking in the first half, and one of the things that you can often find on social media are that conferences are happening and where they're happening. So you could find call for papers, so looking for your proposals. You can also find connections or conference panels that are open to people. Also, people looking to fill their conference panels, sometimes they'll need an extra speaker, and it might be something that you have expertise in or that you want to be able to discuss and talk about. And conferences are great because it's bringing all of those people that you meet in these virtual networks into one space together, and to be able to, like you're doing with MCN right now, be able to have lots of different conversations, follow lots of different threads, and find out lots of different people, just what they're doing, what kind of things they have done, what kind of things they want to be doing, and bring all that together. So we have participated in lots of different networks and conferences. So we have NAEA, which is the National Arts Educators Association.
Yeah.
We have AAM, so the American Association of Museums. We have MCN, which we're doing right here today. ASTC, which is the Association of Science Technology Centers.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing about conferences is they're all alphabet soup. They're all different acronyms.
Just so many acronyms.
And if there's an M, it probably means museum if you're in the museum field, but you'll figure it out.
It's anyone's guess. We also do face-to-face New York City Arts and Education Roundtable, who's been slaying it this year in terms of supporting their members. I have to shout them out for that. And the Greater Hudson Heritage Network. So it's a little biased to New York City. So that's where I do a lot of my conferences. But there are so many other conferences, as we've mentioned before. A lot of the conferences that were posted up on that sheet were also people who were hosting, were also conferences that any EMPN is either hosting at or supporting. So you'll see us pop up at NEMA, you'll see us pop up at MCN again, hopefully in the future. We'll be at NCPH, we'll be at AAM, hopefully. So we will be at many of those conferences. And we know that like networking in real life is like much harder than networking online, because online you have time to like think through what you're gonna say, type it out, edit it. Think about it again, send it. Whereas networking IRL, you're like with people, talking to them in that moment, and you're almost competing for attention because everyone is trying to talk at the same time, right? So let's talk about affording conferences. We're not going to beat around the bush. The conference circuit, she's expensive. And as an EMP, you're likely to self-fund some of them. Like I find that conference development funds are really hard to get when you're an EMP, but as like a higher level, as like a higher person in the field, it's like not as hard to talk about, which is ridiculous, but that's another thing entirely. So our tips for affording conferences are keep an eye out for conference scholarships. So many of the places that we talked about before have conference scholarships or grants or fellowships to make it affordable for folks to join. So many conferences offer those things for emerging professionals, especially to attend, because they know how hard it is. Those scholarships can cover just admission. They can also cover room and board. Just really look into what they're offering. Some of them may ask you for a little bit of extra work after. So like maybe you have to write a blog post. Maybe you have to support their session, like maybe volunteer to help with tech on one session or something, in addition to that work. But also, if you're not interested in those fellowships or you didn't get them, another option for you might be volunteering. We know that not everyone is able to volunteer. Volunteering is a very privileged position to be in. But if you are able, have the time and capacity, many conferences offer volunteer opportunities for folks to attend for free or a discounted rate in exchange for helping out. Now, if you see me at a front desk, please say hi and acknowledge the fact that I'm volunteering, because it's hard out here to pay for all these conferences. One other thing to do is apply for EMP House, and we're so excited to talk more about EMP House. Let's talk EMP House.
So EMPs is an initiative that we at National EMP Network are doing, and this is an opportunity for EMPs to stay in affordable housing during a conference with other EMPs. And our goals are, one, we want to make sure that you have free or really discounted tickets for the attending the conference, so covering some, if not all of your conference registration, having affordable housing for the entire duration of a conference. Like, one of the really difficult things for people is being able to go to a conference for 1 or 2 days, but this would cover the entire time. And then some extra times, like you're spending time with people who you have a built-in network right there. So getting to know them, getting to have some fun, and just generally have a community, because conferences can be really scary when you don't know anybody there. So here you go, you have a bunch of new friends to go into this experience with.
And we also just like try our hardest to make sure EMP House is like a welcoming environment. Like, I go out of my way to make sure that EMP House has like the best swag available. Like, we are making sure it's close to the conference site, so it's not that far for you. And we're usually working in collaboration with the conference organizers. So it's also not a surprise to them. It's not like the secret, oh, we're usurping the hotel. No, most of these conferences know that we're doing this. I mean, they know that we're doing this to support EMPs and bring more folks into the conference, because some of the connections you make IRL, in person, or even on the internet are incredibly valuable as you move through the field. Your network is your most valuable asset, and EMP House is here to help you with that. So to know when EMP House is happening, follow us on social media. We will post it on our socials, but also join our mailing list, which we can send out in a little bit, because EMP House will be happening in 2022. And as I said before, we are definitely doing it at Beck's. We're looking to see if we'll be doing it in other places. And please know, when we do EMP House, we're doing it in accordance to the laws of the area. So you'll never see an EMP House in New York City, unfortunately. And probably not Boston, but you will see EMP House in places that do support Airbnb or VRBO legally.
And if there is a conference that you're going to that you would like to see an EMP House, please let us know, because we want to make sure we can get involved and help support you all there.
Absolutely. Let's talk about what's in our conference tote. So we all know, everyone knows, that museums in general, we love a tote bag. We love a tote bag. I don't know if anyone else in this group, I would love to see a hand raise using reactions or so. Just feel free to react if you have a bag of tote bags.
I have my MCN tote bag, which is right over in the corner from 2019.
But would love to see some reactions if folks also have a bag of tote bags. Oh, okay. Everyone else is, yeah, okay. Thank you, folks. Thank you for making us not feel like the only people with bags of tote bags. My bag of tote bag is slowly becoming a closet of tote bags, but it's fine. While we have all these great, gorgeous tote bags, we also know that we're bringing them to the conference to show up. Let's not lie, folks. The tote bag that you bring to the conference, if it's not the conference tote bag, is probably one of your most valuable pieces in your outfit, your whole ensemble. What's in your tote bag is just as important as well. So you want to make sure you have your conference program and any information that you need, a folder for handouts. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a conference and I just have like loose papers everywhere. If you don't get a folder at the conference, it's a lost cause. That paper can end up anywhere. Pen/pencil and a notebook And don't scrimp on yourself. You deserve the best. Bring their best notebook, bring your best pen and pencil. You're going to be using it to write lots of notes. Also, you might be using it to write down contact information and stuff from people. Make yourself as happy and comfortable as possible. Business cards and a place to put them. Ooh, business cards. So not everyone gets business cards, right? Let's be real. Not everyone gets business cards. If you do have a job where you get a business card, take a chunk of those business cards with you and have a place to put them. So I know some people like to go super old school, get a rubber band, tie it up. That's a whole deal. Some people might be a little fancier, get a little business card holder with their little initials on it, put their business cards in there. You are more than welcome to do that. And if you're someone who doesn't have business cards right now, you just like you're not affiliated with an institution that gives you business cards, or you're a freelancer, make them. I'm telling you, it's going to save you so much time, so much energy. Make your own business cards. If you are a student, my favorite brand of business cards is from Moo. Moo.com is honestly one of like the premier printing companies. I'm sorry, we are not sponsored by Moo. I have to put that disclaimer. I have tried my hardest to be sponsored by Moo. They are just not taking it. But feel free to join to look at Moo. And Moo, if you are a student, has a student discount for their business cards. So take advantage of that student discount. I would also say another great place to find student discounts on business cards are, yes, I loved Moo. I still love Moo. I honestly, like, if I could order more business cards from Moo, I would. If Moo is not in your price range, because she's a little expensive, I know that, you can also print from Vistaprint, print from Staples. You can print from anywhere. Yes, Vistaprint, Danuta gets it. So Vistaprint, and we all know Vistaprint is on radios, internet, all the ads. You can get a coupon code and get them for the cheap. I will say though, I'm gonna give you a little design tip from a design museum historian person. Don't get thin business cards. People out here judging you for your thin business card. I'm telling you, you want to get a business card that has a little bit of heft. It's like a little bit of heft to it, just a little bit. You don't want to have a paper thin business card. I know. It was the cheapest. I know people out here judging because of them. I have been in conferences where I've heard people be like, do you see this flimsy card? Don't be that person.
The American Psycho scene is real.
It's true. But you don't have to get like the thick boys. Just get one that's a little heft to it. A water bottle. Thirst is real at a conference, and sometimes you're not on the same cycle for lunches, or you might be in between lunches, or you could be me who's chronically dehydrated. Gotta have your water bottle with you at all times. And also most hotels have places to refill their water, or conference centers, so you want to make sure you're refilling. And then your room key and access info. I know that this sounds preposterous. You're like, of course I would have my room key. I cannot tell you how many times I have been with people who have been like, shit, I forgot my room key upstairs.
If you're at a fancy conference when they have like the lanyards, I often put the room key in the lanyard with me, so I remember that it's there. The other thing to add for all of this too is like, we're talking about in-person conferences, but a lot of this applies to virtual conferences as well. So like, you do want to have a tab open with that conference program. You're going to want a pen and pencil and notebook, because I take lots of virtual notes, but I know if I write it down, I will actually remember, and it'll be really pretty. And you're going to want to be able to have like your business information ready to go and share if somebody asks you for it. And obviously you want a water bottle, because you're going to need to be hydrated even if you're sitting in front of Zoom all day.
If you're like me, you'll have multiple beverages to get you through the day. One thing I will say is, if you don't have a tote bag or a bag that you love for conferences, get one. It is not expensive. Some conferences give you a tote bag. They don't tell you sometimes if they're giving you a tote bag, so you could be ending up empty-handed. You don't want that. You want a vessel to just throw all your stuff into. So we can absolutely recommend some solid tote bags for you, but we're also giving away an NEMPN tote bag at the end of this. So we will be also randomly selecting someone to get an NEMPN tote bag at the end of this. So lucky you. And last but absolutely not least, find us on social. This is Emily and Heidi, who is not able to join us today, and myself. This is our emails and general contact info. And if you were on that spreadsheet from before, all of our details, including our social media details, are on there. Last but absolutely not least, if you are not currently doing anything with any EMPN, we absolutely would love to see you at some upcoming things. We are also currently running a fundraiser called Sweattober that is wrapping up on Halloween. It is fundraising for internship stipends throughout the summer. So if you are looking to get an internship stipend for your potentially unpaid internship, keep an eye out for that. I would also recommend that you keep an eye out for the NEMPN Awards. So we are hosting our first award ceremony, and we'll be awarding the places and people who have been doing the work for the EMPs. So I will be dropping EMP Awards info in the chat if you are looking to nominate someone or some people or an organization for that work. We want to highlight groups that are doing work that support EMPs. So once that comes, that is it for us, I think. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or unmute yourselves. We're here to chat. Also, I'm going to stop sharing so you can all see each other's faces. No questions, no nothing? Amazing.
It's just because you're so thorough.
Kelsey! Oh,
Hello.
Kelsey, I also have something I have to send to you, so.
Yeah. I look like I'm in pajamas because I am, and I'm so sorry. But
we're not judging you for that. Thank you, Yvonne. We love to share this info, and of course, we can share this with anyone if you are interested after. And also feel free to use the Google Sheet as a way to connect with folks after this event. Andrea, good to see you. I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I was just gonna agree with Kelsey. I don't have questions because this was just so much fun and also very comprehensive. I swear I'm here. I'm just also like eating soup, which is not a good look for a virtual conference right now.
It's always a look. Don't let people tell you no.
Yeah.
So we are giving away a conference tote bag. And after I put everyone's name through the randomizer, it is going to Rachel Pinella. So congratulations, Rachel. Rachel, if you can send me a DM or an email at president@nationalempnetwork.org, I can get your address to send that to you. So congratulations, Rachel. And then Kelsey, I moved some mountains for you. That's all I have to say. And by move mountains, I have to go find things. But thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. We're super excited. And Rachel, we'll look forward to getting an email or a DM from you so that we can put your info, so we can send you your NEMPN tote bag. Thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you on social media. And we hope to see you at a future conference or EMP house. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Emily, for being my co-host.
And enjoy the rest of MCN.
Absolutely. We'll see you at some other MCN sessions. Bye, Kelsey.